Megalopolis is Francis Ford Coppola's long-gestated project, and it has finally been brought to life thanks to his own $120 million investment. Originally, the idea came to him after his 1979 classic, Apocalypse Now, a time when Coppola sat on top of the world following a list of some of the great films in American cinema. But it wasn't long after that Coppola nearly lost it all after betting on himself with One from the Heart, a mess of a musical that sent Coppola reeling for the next few decades. But he quietly directed some great films for hire in the coming years. The Outsiders, Rumblefish are great works of teen drama, and his phenomenal Dracula has rightly been reclaimed over time. But Megalopolis has been Coppola's goal for a while now, using all that has come before and what finances he has earned in the wine business over the years to complete his grand work. But of course, it wouldn't be a Coppola production without controversy. Alleged reports of harassment and hiring of actors on the outside of Hollywood's good graces put a mark on the film from the beginning, as well as a reportedly bad press screening has left many of us wondering what the film could be. A lot. This movie is a lot. And to be honest, not very good. But I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. Its edit feels unprofessional, with multiple takes that feature very obviously flubbed lines. It has a major imbalance in terms of performances, most notably Shia LaBeouf and Natalie Emmanuel, who feels completely outmatched in every scene. The film is misogynistic at worst and ignorant at best, especially in a sequence that includes a deep fake of a rising star that has eerie similarities to Taylor Swift, that brings the film to a screeching halt. And instead of commenting on this in any nuanced way, Coppola uses this as a moment to cast aside the woman and cry about cancel culture in an incredibly obnoxious way that only an 85-year-old man can. Not to mention the fact that every woman who doesn't have a baby in this movie is a monster. Yet, I'm still incredibly fascinated by this film. At its heart, it's an incredibly sincere film that shows a man grappling with the loss of his wife and how to leave the world better than you found it. Both are very admirable ideas. Both are excellently portrayed in Adam Driver's performance as the arrogant and yet optimistic Caesar Catalina. Somehow he can thread the needle when it comes to the tone of this film, and that alone places him as truly the best actor working today. It's remarkable how much passion and depth Adam Driver brings to a character that I so desperately want to despise. A man who desperately wants to create a utopia, a la Plato's The Republic, a utopia created by the rich and educated partitions for the plebeian masses. A lot of its ideas are philosophy 101 and also incredibly functionalist, but it's quite easy to push them aside because the film could honestly care less if the system works. I don't even know if Coppola is a functionalist himself or yearns for the Republic of Rome, because ultimately we're just seeing a vision of a man where everything works out. He has the perfect resource, unlimited capital, and perfect education, and is just trying to build. So while I could get caught up in the minutiae of all of this political philosophy, the film is much more concerned with the idea of creation. Well, creation by way of an artist. And Coppola sees liberalism, popularism, white supremacy, capital, women, food, substance, and entertainment as just a tool or a barrier to Caesar, or himself. Tools to create with or to use as fuel for his creations. Those who dare to stand in the artist's way be damned. And for an auteur like Coppola, it doesn't surprise me that this is his sentiment. Coppola and many of his fellow cinematic auteurs have been praised and revered since their arrival in pop culture during the well-remembered 70s. But Coppola in particular is praised for his intense creative productions, most notably in the making of Apocalypse Now, which was famously documented by his wife Eleanor Coppola in Hearts of Darkness. I can't imagine escaping that production, and then the final product is one of the greatest films ever made. A hit of ego that I think he never came down from, and that has spilled over all the way to here. I myself have been guilty of valorizing these great auteurs that go to any lengths to create these grand works without a care for those who they collaborate with and the present pain it might cause. But ultimately, it's harmful. The film itself is deeply archaic in style, and purposefully so. Moments remind me of the work of Powell and Pressburger or Orson Welles, a film obsessed with its own artifice and its own creation, egotistical to the highest order, trying to pretend to be egalitarian. It's a movie about protecting great men, and Coppola sees himself as one of these great men, a boomer who desperately yearns for JFK and the optimism of the early 1960s. But you know, I can't help but think of one of Coppola's contemporaries, Scorsese, an artist who has evolved and has looked within himself and his own art in fascinating ways. I think of last year's Killer of the Flower Moon in particular, that questions the very art form and stories he has chosen to tell, and how it represents America's own bleak past. Coppola feels youthful behind the camera, sure, but it's a youthful ignorance. Ultimately, Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis is a monument that he hopes to give to the masses, just like in the final moments as driver Caesar monologues to a mob of civilians, saying that we must look to the future and create something better for the next generation. But ultimately, it's disingenuous and a rejection of what the film really is. It's a monument to himself. And while this has been a movie that I have heavily anticipated, it really is quite disappointing to see the final product. I think that this film is not gonna find it easy to connect with the generation that it hopes to connect with. And I think ultimately it's a failure, even though it has pretty outstanding moments in the film visually. And I do think at points, the ideas of creating art fueled by love are quite admirable. It ultimately is a failure, and I think that if I had to give it a rating right now, I'd probably give it a 2 out of 5 stars. And for my double feature, I actually would like to talk a little bit more about Killers of the Flower Moon. It is a film I have discussed on the channel a little while back, but I do think it works in really interesting contrast to Megalopolis, as two aging auteurs look at what it means to be an artist and to tell a story. And I think they are two wildly different ideas, and I think this one in particular is going to stand the test of time, where Megalopolis is really just going to be a footnote in the story of Coppola and a film about Coppola's own story. Whereas Scorsese rightfully places himself as a storyteller in the grand American story that I think is really fascinating. And thank y'all so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and comment down below what you'd like to see me review next. And I hope y'all all have a great day.